I never thought I would be the one standing between 400 alien warships and the rest of humanity. Honestly, if you had told me that 12 years of watching empty space would lead to this moment, I would have laughed. Border watch is boring. That is the whole point. You sit at your station, you run your checks, you file your reports, and nothing happens. That is a good day. That is every day. Or at least it was. Until the morning the sensors went insane and I spilled my coffee all over the navigation console. My name is Commander Alara Voss. I run Iron Gate Station, a border watch post sitting at the outer edge of the Terran exclusion perimeter. Most people back on Earth have never heard of the perimeter. Why would they? It is not a wall you can see. It is not a fence or a gate or a physical thing of any kind. It is a line, a coordinate boundary, drawn in the dark between stars. And it means one simple thing: you do not cross it without permission from Terran command. Not alien traders, not diplomatic vessels, not explorers. Nobody. The perimeter is the rule, and the rule has no exceptions. Every species out there knows this. We made sure of it. What they did not fully understand, apparently, was that we meant it. Petty Officer Teo was the one who saw them first. He was sitting at the long-range sensor array, running a routine sweep, when his screen filled up with contact signatures. He did not say anything for about 4 seconds. I know because I was watching him from across the room, and I saw his face change. Not with fear exactly, but with the look of a person whose brain is refusing to believe the information it is receiving. "Commander," he said, in a voice that was very carefully controlled, "I have contacts. A lot of contacts." I walked over. I looked at the screen. I counted. I stopped counting at 200 because the number kept growing, and somewhere around 412 my brain made the same decision Thou's had. I pulled up the spectral analysis, the mass readings, the drive signatures. Then I pulled up the historical database. Veth Dominion. If you want to understand how I felt in that moment, you need to understand who the Veth are. They are not pirates. They are not desperate. They are an empire, old, vast, and deeply convinced that the galaxy belongs to them by right of power. They have absorbed 17 civilizations. Not destroyed, absorbed. They arrive, they overwhelm, they incorporate. The civilizations that bent the knee still exist in some form inside the Dominion, carrying Veth flags and Veth law. The ones that didn't bend, well, there are ruins, and the Veth use them as examples when they want to make a point. 412 vessels. I had one station, 63 crew members, and a particle cannon array that was, let us say, adequate for normal border enforcement. I sat down in my command chair, took a breath, and opened a channel to Terran command. I gave them coordinates, fleet composition, and my current status. Then I filed the first of what would become a series of distress updates, sent every 6 minutes on the emergency frequency. I did not panic. Panicking uses energy that you need for thinking, and I needed every bit of thinking I had. The Veth did not make me wait long. Their transmission came in 40 minutes after arrival. The flagship, a ship called the Eternal Verdict, which tells you everything you need to know about how they see themselves, opened a channel without asking permission. The voice that came through the speaker was low and layered, like two voices speaking almost in unison, and the translator rendered it into clean, flat sentences. "You are holding a position before our path. Remove yourself. We are passing through this sector." I looked at Thau. Thau looked at me. I pressed the transmit key. "This is Commander Alara Voss, Terran Border Command, Station Designation Iron Gate. You are approaching the Terran exclusion perimeter. No unauthorized transit is permitted. Please identify your authorization credentials or alter your course." There was a pause, a long one. "We do not require authorization from a species that has occupied this space for less than 3,000 years. Stand aside." Now, here is the thing about humans that a lot of species seem to misunderstand until it is too late. We do not respond well to being talked down to. It is not that we become emotional. Well, some of us do. It is that something in our nature locks in. The more someone insists we have no choice, the harder we work to find one. I felt that lock happen somewhere in my chest, quiet and firm, like a door closing. Authorization is required for all vessels regardless of origin, age, or fleet size. This is not a negotiation. Please present credentials or change your heading. What followed over the next 2 hours was one of the stranger conversations of my life. The Veth Executor, that was the title of the commander on the other end, cycled through approaches like a person trying different keys on a lock. First came the historical argument. They had traversed this region of space long before humans arrived. I acknowledged this and told them the perimeter was current law, and current law applied. Then came the threat. They had weapons that could remove my station from existence in minutes. I acknowledged this too, and told them that I understood, and that my position remained unchanged. Then came something almost like curiosity. They listed 17 civilizations by name that had yielded to Dominion passage demands. I listened to every name. Then I told them that was 17 other civilizations, and I was a human, and we had a different way of doing things. You are one station, the executor said. You are alone. I am on the border, I said. That is what Border Watch means. Please present credentials or adjust your course. He went silent. The fleet held position. I kept filing updates every 6 minutes. What the executor did not know, what I had not told him, because he had not asked the right question, was what Iron Gate actually was, not what it looked like, but what it was connected to. 6 years before my posting, Terran Command had completed what they called the Deadman Array. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a network, a distributed system of automated response nodes seated across 80,000 kilometers of border space, designed to operate independently of any station command. You could destroy Iron Gate completely, crew and all, and the array would continue to function. It would detect violations. It would respond. It was our answer to a very old problem. How do you defend a line when the other side can simply remove whoever is standing on it? The Veth did not know about the array. Almost nobody did. I knew about it because I was the station commander, and I had the activation codes sitting in a sealed file on my secondary console. I had never opened that file in 12 years. I sat looking at it now, the way you might look at a very large fire extinguisher, glad it existed, hoping you would never need it, fairly certain today was going to be the day. The executor came back on the channel 4 hours in, and his tone had changed. Less formal. Something harder underneath it. Our scout vessel will confirm your array specifications. It will cross the boundary as a survey measure only, not as an aggressive act. I heard Tao pull a sharp breath behind me. I looked at my console. I looked at the sealed file. I opened it. I entered the authorization sequence, and the array came online across my secondary display in a long, quiet list of green indicators. 140 response nodes, armed and ready, spread across the void like seeds no one could see. That action will be treated as a violation of the perimeter, I said. I strongly advise against it. The scout vessel crossed the line at 1400 hours, station time. It was a small ship, maybe a patrol craft, maybe a probe. The crossing was precise and deliberate. It was a test. I activated Node 7. I want to be honest about what that felt like. It did not feel powerful. It felt heavy. A light blinked on my console. A counter logged a response event, and on the long-range display the scout vessel's contact signature simply stopped. No explosion visible at this distance. No debris cloud yet, just gone. There and then not there, in the space of less than half a second. The Veth fleet did not move. Not forward, not back. 400 ships hanging in space, absolutely still. The executor did not speak for 9 minutes. When he did, his voice was different, not frightened. I do not think the Veth do frightened in any way I would recognize, but recalculating, careful. How many of those do you have? I thought about how to answer that. I thought about honesty and strategy, and the specific kind of courage it takes to say something simple when simple is the most powerful choice. Enough, I said. Another silence. Then, explain this system. So, I explained it. I explained the concept of automated deterrence. I explained the principle that we humans had worked out long ago, back when we were still fighting each other on a single planet. That the most reliable way to prevent a catastrophic attack is to guarantee that the attack cannot succeed without guaranteeing the attacker's own destruction. I explained that this was something my species had invented for ourselves before we ever reached the stars. I explained it clearly and without emotion, the way you explain something to someone who genuinely does not yet understand, but needs to. The executor was quiet for a long time after that. Then he said something that I did not expect. You designed a weapon to destroy yourselves, along with your enemy. We designed a guarantee, I said. There is a difference. He cut the channel. 11 hours passed. 11 hours of Sao running sensor sweeps every 15 minutes, of me refiling distress updates, of the crew eating ration packs in shifts, and nobody going off duty, and nobody saying much of anything. I ate a protein bar at some point. It tasted like cardboard, and I ate a second one. Tao played a quiet card game with two of the engineering techs at the back of the room. I watched the fleet on the display, and the fleet did not move, and I thought about every choice that had led to this particular chair, on this particular day. I was not afraid exactly. It was more like standing on the edge of something very large and knowing, very clearly, that the edge was real. At hour 11, the Terran relief fleet arrived. They came out of transit behind Iron Gate, 62 warships in a deployment pattern that meant business. Admiral Chen's voice came over the command channel, calm and professional, running through the standard arrival checks. I did not announce this to the Veth. I simply opened the frequency so that the executor's communication system could detect the fleet traffic. 62 ships checking in, one after another, in the clean, flat language of Terran military protocol. Then I muted the channel and waited. The Veth fleet began to move at hour 11 and 40 minutes, not toward us, away. Slowly, with the measured pace of something very large that is changing direction, not because it has to, but because it has decided to. There is a difference, I have learned to see it, between a retreat and a withdrawal. A retreat is driven by fear. A withdrawal is driven by a new calculation. The Veth were not afraid. They were thinking. And what they had decided, apparently, was that the math here did not work in their favor. The eternal verdict was the last ship to turn. Before it did, the executor opened one final channel. I could hear something in his voice that I had not heard in the long hours before. Not respect exactly, but something adjacent to it. The kind of thing you feel when something surprises you enough to make you reconsider what you thought you knew. "What are you?" he asked. I had not prepared an answer. I did not need one. 12 years on the border, watching empty space, standing on the line that humanity had drawn in the dark. The answer had been sitting in me the whole time, waiting for exactly this question. "We are the ones who drew the line," I said, "and the ones who meant it. You wanted to know what lives beyond your border, beyond the edge of everything you have taken. Now you know, we are the thing that does not move." He closed the channel. The eternal verdict turned and followed its fleet into the dark. I sat in my command chair for a while after that. Thao brought me a cup of coffee. A real one, not the reheated kind, and set it down beside me without saying anything. I appreciated that. Sometimes there is nothing useful to say, and the best thing another person can do is simply be present, and Thao had always understood that better than most. Admiral Chen's voice came back on the command channel, asking for a full incident report at my earliest convenience. I told him I would have it filed within the hour. Then I looked out through the observation port at the space where 400 ships had been, and where now there was nothing but stars and the quiet dark of the perimeter, holding exactly as it always had. Border watch is boring, that is the whole point. Some days it is more boring than others. Today was not one of those days, but tomorrow would be. I would run my checks, file my reports, watch the empty space, and nothing would happen. And if something did, if something ever came back, larger, or faster, or angrier than before, I would be here. The line would be here. That is what the border means. That is what it has always meant. You do not move. You do not bend. You do not explain yourself twice. You simply stand where you stand, and you make it true.